Everyone's moving to Colorado. The mountains, the sunshine, 400 days of blue sky, legal everything, and a job market that's been attracting people from every corner of the country. Real estate agents will show you photos of peaks dusted with snow, breweries on every corner, and affordable suburbs where your California or Texas money suddenly stretches further. But nobody shows you the other photos, the ones where your car gets stolen in broad daylight, where your 1 in 14 odds of being a property crime victim aren't hypothetical, they're Tuesday. Where the air you breathe contains chemicals, the EPA has been fining companies millions for releasing them. We pulled FBI data, state environmental records, and poverty statistics to find the 10 Colorado suburbs where that dream home turns into a financial and emotional disaster. And what we found is going to make some real estate agents very uncomfortable. Start with a place so small it barely registers on most maps. Sheridan sits tucked between Englewood and Littleton, just south of Denver, covering maybe 1.7 square miles of cramped residential blocks and struggling commercial strips. The entire city is basically the size of a neighborhood, and that neighborhood has a massive problem. Property crime sits at roughly 6,980 incidents per 100,000 people. The national average is around 2,000. Do the math. Sheridan is running 3.5 times the rate of property crime you'd find in a typical American community. If you buy here, you're looking at about a 1 in 14 chance each year of having something stolen, your car broken into, packages lifted, or worse. The River Point commercial area drives a lot of these numbers. Shoplifting and retail theft pile up in police reports and drag down the city's overall reputation. But here's the thing, even if you avoid that specific area, you're still living in one of the statistically riskiest places in the entire state when it comes to property crime. Violent crime has actually been cut in half over recent years, which sounds impressive until you realize the theft rate hasn't budged. Your doors stay locked, your cameras stay on, your packages get sent to a secure locker, and even then, you're rolling dice that don't favor you. Sheridan is centrally located. Housing is cheap compared to surrounding areas, and you've got highway access that makes commuting easy. But the price you pay for affordability here isn't just financial. It's constant vigilance and statistical risk that most people don't want to accept. About 100 miles south, there's a city that real estate agents love to pitch as the affordable alternative to Denver or Colorado Springs, Pueblo. And Pueblo has a reputation that city officials desperately want to shake, but can't seem to escape. This place has the highest violent crime rate per capita among large cities in Colorado. Not second place, first. And this ranking holds even after recent improvements. In early 2024, Pueblo saw an 86% spike in homicides by April, 11 people dead in 4 months. That's not a trend, that's a crisis. U.S. News & World Report put Pueblo on its list of the 10 most dangerous places in the entire United States, the whole country. That ranking sparked outrage from locals and city leaders who argued it unfairly stigmatizes a community working hard to turn things around. And you know what? They're not entirely wrong. Rankings can oversimplify complex realities and ignore genuine progress being made. But the uncomfortable truth is that those rankings pull from FBI data. They're not invented. The violent crime rate in Pueblo is measurably, statistically higher than the vast majority of American cities. And there's another factor nobody talks about enough. 19% of Pueblo residents live below the poverty line. That's significantly above both the U.S. and Colorado averages. Poverty and crime feed each other. When economic opportunity dries up, when jobs disappear, when people are struggling to survive, crime climbs. Pueblo is trapped in that cycle. Yes, you can buy a house here for a fraction of what you'd pay in Denver. The cost of living is low. The scenery still has that Colorado beauty, and there are genuine pockets of the city that feel safe and community-oriented. But you're trading affordability for persistent violent crime and economic stress that permeates everything. It's a gamble with odds that aren't in your favor. Head back north to the Denver metro, and there's an inner ring suburb that looks perfect on paper. Great location, walkable streets, light rail access that gets you downtown in minutes, and housing prices that don't require a tech salary. Englewood checks every box urban planners love, except for the crime box. Neighborhood Scout data puts your odds at about 1 in 18 for property crime each year. 1 in 18. Violent crime sits around 1 in 159, which is notably higher than most U.S. communities. Crime aggregates show about 75 incidents per 1,000 residents. The national average is 33. Englewood more than doubles it. Recent rankings of Colorado's most dangerous cities put Englewood near the top, with total crime at roughly 179% above the U.S. average. What makes Englewood frustrating is how much potential it has. The location is prime. The light rail stations mean you don't need to drive everywhere. Local businesses and restaurants give it character, but the data doesn't care about character. The risk of theft, break-ins, and car prowls is significantly elevated compared to neighboring communities like Littleton or Greenwood Village. Englewood has launched community policing initiatives and economic development projects aimed at turning things around, but the numbers haven't shifted dramatically. You're accepting elevated risk every time you park on the street or leave your house empty during the day. For some people, that trade-off is worth it for the location and affordability. For others, it's a deal breaker they don't discover until after they've signed the mortgage. Go west toward the foothills and you hit Lakewood, one of the largest suburbs in the entire Denver metro. Around 155,000 people call it home, making it Colorado's 5th most populous city. It's got established neighborhoods, parks, proximity to Red Rocks Amphitheater and the mountains, plus tons of amenities you'd expect from a mature suburb. On paper, Lakewood looks like a safe bet, but FBI estimates put the total crime rate at about 5,880 incidents per 100,000 people. That's 177% higher than the U.S. average and roughly 92% above Colorado's already elevated baseline. Even when you account for the fact that Colorado as a whole runs hotter on crime than many states, Lakewood still comes in significantly above average. Now, to be fair, crime in Lakewood has been trending downward. The city invested in more police presence, better street lighting in high-crime areas, and community programs that are starting to show results. But the baseline is still high. When you compare Lakewood to other large Denver suburbs like Arvada, Westminster, or Thornton, it consistently ranks as one of the higher-risk options. And because Lakewood covers such a large geographic area, crime isn't evenly distributed. Some neighborhoods feel perfectly safe and look like typical suburban America. Others have persistent issues with theft, burglaries, and car break-ins that keep residents constantly on edge. If you're shopping here, you can't trust citywide averages. You need to dig deep into specific neighborhood stats, because those averages are already concerning, and the wrong block can be significantly worse. Shift north into Adams County, and there's a tiny city that punches way above its weight in crime statistics. Federal Heights covers barely 3 square miles, but consistently ranks among the most dangerous places in Colorado. Property crime rates have exceeded 3,500 to 4,200 incidents per 100,000 residents in recent years. That puts it among the highest property crime rates in the entire country. Neighborhood Scout estimates residents face about a 1 in 31 chance of property crime each year. 1 in 31. Violent crime sits at 1 in 122. Those numbers are staggering for such a small area. But crime is only part of the story. Federal Heights struggles with poverty at double the state rate. Around 20 to 21% of residents live below the poverty line, compared to Colorado's 9 to 10% statewide. And poverty drives crime. When economic opportunity is scarce, when people are barely scraping by, when resources don't exist to support struggling families, crime rates inevitably climb. Federal Heights has been stuck in this cycle for years. Breaking out requires investment, economic development, and community resources that haven't materialized at the scale needed. Housing here is cheap, really cheap, compared to the rest of the Denver metro. For first-time buyers or people stretching their budgets, that affordability is incredibly attractive. But you need to understand the trade-off. This isn't a place where you can assume every block is the same. You need to be extremely selective about which micro neighborhood you choose. Even then, you're accepting a level of risk that simply doesn't exist elsewhere in the metro. Federal Heights is small, dense, and historically crime-prone. That reputation isn't going away. Just east of Federal Heights, still in Adams County, Commerce City has a different kind of problem. Crime is elevated here, too. Neighborhood Scout shows about a 1 in 35 chance of property crime and 1 in 131 for violent crime. Those numbers put it clearly above average. But Commerce City has something else potential homebuyers need to know about: pollution. Serious, documented, legally problematic pollution. The Suncor refinery sits right in Commerce City and has racked up thousands of alleged Clean Air Act violations over the years. Multi-million-dollar fines paid to the EPA and the state. Colorado's Department of Public Health and Environment explicitly recognizes Suncor as a major source of nitrogen oxides, particulate matter, and air toxics, including benzene. Benzene is a known carcinogen. You're breathing it. Your kids are breathing it. Suncor continues to operate legally and has made improvements, but the environmental justice concerns around Commerce City are real and well documented. Lawsuits, community protests, and ongoing monitoring by environmental groups who argue that residents, particularly low-income residents and communities of color, bear an unfair burden of pollution exposure. The northern part of Commerce City, especially newer master-planned communities like Reunion, has attractive housing and good schools. Developers poured money into creating neighborhoods that feel separate from the industrial South Side. But geography doesn't lie. You're still in Commerce City. You're still near the refinery. Air quality monitors still register elevated pollutant levels on bad days. And the crime rate, while not as extreme as some other places on this list, remains above average. You're buying into both crime and environmental baggage. Some people make that trade for the price and newer construction, but go in with eyes wide open. Now we need to talk about the elephant in the room: Aurora. Colorado's third largest city, sprawling across Adams, Arapahoe, and Douglas counties, covering more than 160 square miles. Aurora is massive, diverse, and wildly uneven in terms of safety and long-term investment potential. Among Colorado's large cities, Aurora currently has the second highest violent crime rate after Denver, sitting at about 203 violent crimes per 100,000 residents, according to Common Sense Institute data. Second place. Only Denver is worse. But here's where it gets complicated. Aurora has also seen significant improvements recently. Overall crime dropped 17% in 2024 compared to the previous year. Homicides fell sharply from pandemic-era spikes. Auto theft, which used to be a massive problem, declined after the city passed a strict ordinance in 2022. Aurora used to account for about 19% of all car thefts in Colorado. 19% from one city. The 2022 ordinance helped bring that number down, but Aurora remains part of the Denver Metro, which is still one of the nation's auto theft hotspots. If you drive a Kia or Hyundai, good luck. Those models get targeted constantly because of a viral social media trend showing how easy they are to steal. The overall trend is moving in the right direction, but the baseline remains concerning. Aurora's reputation for crime isn't unearned, even if it's become more nuanced recently. The real issue with Aurora is size. It's so big and so varied that generalizing about the entire city becomes almost meaningless. Parts of Aurora are solidly middle class, safe, and desirable. Great schools, low crime, strong community ties. Other parts have crime rates through the roof, persistent gang activity, and property values that have stagnated or declined. The difference between buying in the right part of Aurora versus the wrong part is night and day. And the problem is that many out-of-state buyers or first-time home buyers don't do the research needed to distinguish between them. They see Aurora and a low price tag and assume it's all the same. It's not. Aurora also became a political flashpoint recently, with national politicians making claims about gangs taking over apartment complexes. Those claims were widely debunked and overblown, but they added to Aurora's already complicated reputation. The reality is more nuanced. Aurora is a diverse, working-class city with pockets of serious crime and other areas that are perfectly fine. But the risk of making a bad purchase is higher here than almost anywhere else in the metro. One wrong tract, one block that looks fine on Google Maps but has underlying issues, and your investment can age very badly. Aurora is a gamble. Sometimes it pays off. Often it doesn't. Colorado crime isn't just a Front Range problem. Head west across the mountains to the Grand Junction area, and there's a suburb called Clifton that doesn't get nearly enough attention. Clifton sits just east of Grand Junction along Interstate 70, and it's the kind of place people move to for a lower cost of living, outdoor recreation access, and a slower pace of life compared to Denver. But Area Vibes reports overall crime rates about 114% higher than the U.S. average. Violent crime is roughly 89% higher. Neighborhood Scout estimates a 1 in 44 yearly chance of property crime. Those aren't small differences. Those are significant red flags. Clifton also struggles with poverty at almost double the state average. Recent analyses put the poverty rate around 17 to 18% compared to Colorado's 9.6%. And just like everywhere else on this list, poverty drives crime. When economic opportunity is limited, when jobs are scarce, and when wages stay low, crime rates climb. Clifton has cheap entry prices for housing, which attracts people priced out of more expensive markets. But you're not going to see Front Range style appreciation here. The fundamentals aren't there. The economy isn't as strong, population growth is slower, and the crime and poverty issues create a drag on property values that's hard to overcome. If you're looking to settle down long-term and you're okay with the trade-offs, Clifton might work. But if you're viewing this as an investment or expecting steady home value appreciation, you're probably going to be disappointed. Back on the northern Front Range, there's a small city next to Greeley offering lower home prices than its bigger neighbor, but bringing its own set of problems. Evans sits just east of Greeley along U.S. Highway 85 with a population of around 22,000. It's small, quiet, and affordable. Neighborhood Scout puts Evans at about 19 property crimes per 1,000 residents, translating to a 1 in 52 chance each year. The violent crime rate also ranks as one of the highest among small U.S. communities, at about 1 in 189. And like other places on this list, Evans struggles with poverty. Multiple data sources put the poverty rate around 14.2%, noticeably above both Colorado and the national averages. Evans doesn't have the infrastructure, amenities, or economic base that Greeley has. It's essentially a bedroom community for people who work in Greeley or Fort Collins but want cheaper housing. That's fine if you're aware of what you're getting. But the combination of higher crime and higher poverty means resale is more uncertain. Long-term home value appreciation is questionable, and your day-to-day comfort and sense of security might not match expectations. Evans is another example of trading affordability for risk. Some people are okay with that trade. Others regret it later. Finally, let's talk about a place most people have never heard of, Welby. It's not a city, it's not a town. It's an unincorporated, census-designated place in Adams County, just north of Denver, sandwiched between Commerce City and Thornton. And Welby has earned the distinction of being one of the most dangerous unincorporated areas in the entire state. Area Vibes gives Welby an F grade for crime, an F. Total crime sits at about 3,913 incidents per 100,000 people, roughly 72% higher than the U.S. average. Residents have an estimated 1 in 26 chance of being a crime victim in a typical year. 1 in 26. Violent crime runs about 50% above the national average in some data sets. Property crime is notably elevated as well. Welby is the ultimate example of cheap near Denver, coming with a statistically higher risk profile. Because it's unincorporated, Welby doesn't have its own police force. It relies on Adams County Sheriff's deputies, and response times can be slower than in cities with dedicated departments. There's less infrastructure, fewer services, and a generally more neglected feel compared to incorporated suburbs nearby. People buy in Welby because it's affordable and close to Denver, but you're accepting a level of crime risk that doesn't exist in nearby Thornton or Westminster. It's a rough area. The data backs that up. Unless you have a very specific reason to be there, it's hard to recommend Welby to anyone with other options. Let's step back and put this in perspective. Colorado's crime rates are actually falling. After a spike during the pandemic, violent crime across the state has dropped significantly. Homicide rates are back down to or below pre-pandemic levels in many cities. Property crime is trending downward in several metros. The overall trajectory is positive. And it's also true that crime is hyper-local. In several cities we've discussed, some blocks look perfectly fine statistically, while others drive the averages up. You can live in Aurora or Lakewood or even Englewood and have a completely safe, comfortable experience if you choose the right neighborhood and do proper homework. Citywide averages don't tell the whole story. And let's be honest about something else. Regret is subjective. Some people gladly trade higher crime rates for lower mortgage payments. Some accept pollution risks to be close to certain jobs or to afford a bigger house. Some grew up in areas with higher crime and don't feel as concerned about statistics as someone moving from a low-crime suburb in another state. Everyone's risk tolerance is different. Everyone's priorities are different. There's no universal answer to whether any of these places is worth it or not. But here's what isn't subjective: the data. FBI crime statistics, state environmental records, poverty rates, and victim odds were calculated by independent research firms. Those numbers are real. They're based on actual incidents, actual reports, actual violations. And they should inform your decision. Not dictate it, but inform it. If you're looking at homes in any of these 10 suburbs, dig deeper. Look at the specific neighborhood. Talk to people who actually live there. Check crime maps. Visit at different times of day. Understand what you're getting into, because the price tag on that listing doesn't tell you the full story. And the last thing you want is to realize a year after closing that you made a very expensive mistake. Colorado is beautiful. The opportunities are real, but not every suburb is created equal. Some come with hidden costs that no amount of mountain views can offset. Choose wisely.